Begin.
Alright, hi, my name is Davy Lytle, and I'm going to show you how to grind first dimension on any block of steel. Whenever you refer to first dimension on a block of steel, it's normally the thickness. Second dimension would be the width, and third would be the length. But we're only going to worry about first today. You just use a surface grinder, because normally it's to finish out a part, put a good finish on it, and size it. So all you want to do is just set this right on your chuck like this. You want to set it sideways so it disperses heat better, so the part doesn't heat up, and the bow is easy. And then you just want to turn your chuck on so it'll stick. Just little things go over on the surface grinder. You always want to make sure your guards are in place and your dust collector's on. I'll turn my dust collector on when I go to grind, just so we don't have all that noise. And I already dressed my wheel to save time, and this is just a wheel dresser. It just cleans up all the grains out of your wheel that would just pick up from the grinding steel. So now I'm going to just grind one side and then turn the dust collector on for it. Just going to pull this out so it's where it's at in the machine. So I'm going to turn it on. Bring your part under your wheel, and then just bring your wheel down. Now what I like to do when I get close, I like to take a white piece of paper or anything white, just so you can see whenever you look under the wheel in between the part, just so you can see how close the wheel actually is, because you can see a little bit of light. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just want to bring it down until you can barely see any light. And then you just want to move this back and forth, slowly bring your wheel down. Now that just touched off, so I'm going to bring this back. I'm going to lower this about 0.001. I'm just going to slowly walk my part underneath the wheel. Don't want to go too fast, so you don't take more salt off one spot than the other, and the part won't be up as fast. So you just want to take your time with it, right across. Now what I like to do is just, without lowering my wheel angle, walk the part back across the wheel. It'll just stay on, any little soft, and just stay on whenever you walk across the wheel. Just see if it's barely hitting at all, barely any sparks coming off. I think this just makes it easier if you're coming to a real tight tolerance, then it doesn't leave any on. Now, all you want to do is clean up this side. Now, if this didn't completely clean up, you want to keep taking off until it did. But if it did, you don't have to worry about it. Now, all you want to do is do the other side. You want to wipe your chuck off so you don't have any dirt under it. So just throw you off and make you have paper. Set your fork on sideways again, the side is just down on the chuck. And then you just want to lower this down about the finish again, and just slowly walk your part underneath the wheel again. Once again, you don't want to go too fast, because then your part will heat up faster. This can make things really difficult if you're going for a really small part. Now I'm just going to walk my wheel, walk my part right across the wheel again, without getting any stock off, so it'll side cleaned up, you take it off the chuck. Now if it wasn't cleaned up, you just keep grinding until it is. Now I'm going to shut my dust collector off just so we can hear better. Now that both sides have been ground, all you want to do is set it on your granite plate, which I've already cleaned with alcohol, just to get all the dirt off. Now, all you need to check it is an indicator. And you just want to bring it down, and just touch the top of the part, and just put about 1/1000th down on the needle. And you just want to move your part around under it, just to see where you're at on. You'd use this for sizing. You'd get a gauge block and you'd set it on your granite plate, and you'd bring your needle and touch the top of it and 0. You could make it hit on 1 when it hits the gauge block, and then you'd want to take your part and move it under the needle. And it's really just a comparison just to see where you're at, but that's how you'd size things, size parts and such like that. So this isn't reading too bad. It's about 2/10 off. But at where I work at, that's not near good enough. It has to be within about 50 millionths. You can check for bows, which doesn't really have a bow in it. So all you do to check that is put your needle in one corner and just touch in the middle and the opposite corner, and that just rocks it to see if it's dished out on one side or there's a hump on the other. Now here is a parallel, well, just a block of steel I ground, just to show you how bad some of these can actually be. Just an exaggerated thing of taper. And it makes the needle almost wrap around. What could have caused that is just a piece of dirt on the chuck whenever you set your part down, and it got up, it lifted the edge up, and you ground the taper. To just take care of that, you'd set it back down, grind one side, flip back over and grind, and your taper should be out. And then if it still isn't, you could rotate your block 180 degrees on the chuck, because your chuck's not always perfect, and by doing that, it'll take the taper out just of your chuck. You don't want to, after you grind one side, you don't want to lower your wheel, because then once you flip it, you'll just grind the taper back on the other way. So you don't want to take any off. And I think this one has some bow too in it, which has a little bit. And that's just from, you could be taking too much off and your part's heating up too fast. And to get rid of that, you'd want to take a smaller block of steel, and if this was your chuck, you'd set it on here sideways, you turn your magnet off and turn it back on, and it should still be sticking to it because it'll still be magnetized. Then you'll set the block of steel that has the bow in it in front of it like this, so the magnet is not holding this piece, because the magnet's so strong it actually pulls the bow out of it. And so it'll look like you're grinding it flat there, but when you take it off and indicate it, it'll have a hump, or it'll be dished out on one side. And then this will hold it against this, and it won't allow it to go anywhere as you grind it. You want to take very small amounts off, because you could throw it off the chuck if you took big amounts. This is one of my parallels I ground at work. There's another one like this that matches it within 50 millionths. This has been ground flat, parallel, and square in all 3 dimensions. And this is just what you'd want to grind pretty much all your stuff to. And you just want to take to the one on the indicator and move it around. And the needle barely even moves, which is good. And it has no taper, no bow. And this is what you want your finished product to be in basically every part you surface grind. And this is just the poster I made, my visual, just grinding, just first dimension. And this is just grinding a block of steel, and same with this one. This is an indicator on a granite plate like we just used. And this is a gauge block, what I mentioned before about how you'd size something. They zeroed it out, and you just take your gauge block away and put your part under it and just see if it's below or above that 0 mark. And then this is just the general surface grinder, what one would look like. And to just restate on how you do this, if you'd ever need to. You'd grind one side, you'd clean it up, you'd flip it around, do the same thing to the other side, and then you'd indicate it to see where you stand at and what more you need to do to it, if it has a taper or a bow. And this can be used in, like, I know you need tight tolerances like this in just an engine, for example, just like the bore of and the piston for the cylinder. The piston has to be ground just so it has a real tight tolerance to fit in, and just even though your rings do most of the work, you still need a real tight tolerance just so you have good compression. And that is why this would be used out in industry and everywhere else. And that is grinding first dimensional surface grinder. Any questions?